بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. I want to start with presenting a situation or a scenario to us. Think of the ones who are older here and working. Think of a day where you've just come back home from work. Spend the whole day or the whole week in work. It's Friday, the weekend is coming up, and we spend the whole week working hard. And for the ones who are young amongst us, think of your whole week being spent in school. You're studying, you're working hard. And you come on Friday evening, you spend some time. How do you want to spend your evening and your night? You want to relax. You want to turn off your mind. You want to do nothing or be entertained. You want to relax, unwind, which is not wrong. I'm the first person, that's what I want to do as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But I just want to present this to you to give an example of the Prophet ﷺ. That after he would spend his entire day dealing with people, calling people to Islam, dealing with their requests and their manners and their needs. There's one hadith that amazes me. It said that the Prophet ﷺ was never asked something that he had the power to do that he said no. In other words, he never said no to anything he was requested to do that he could do. So he was always serving the people how he could. And so the hadith goes that when he used to get home, spend some time with his wife, talk to his wives, then it says he would spend the night in prayer. And the hadith says that he would spend the night in prayer for how long? 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour, two, until his feet used to be swollen, his feet used to swell up. And for him, ﷺ, he was a strong person. He wasn't a weak man, he was a strong man. For somebody like that, for your feet to swell up, it takes hours and hours of standing. So he used to stand the night in prayer. So his wife Aisha, radiallahu anha, she comes to him and says, Ya Rasulullah, when you're already doing so much the whole day, when Allah has promised to forgive your future and your past, you have no sin ever upon you, then why do you stand the whole night like this, and why do you pray all of the night? What is your objective? Why do you do this? And his answer is very beautiful. He says, Ya Aisha, أَفَلَا أَكُونُ عَبْدًا شَكُورًا. He said, should I not be a thankful slave to Allah? Should I not be grateful and thankful for everything He has blessed me with? And this was his way of showing gratefulness and thankfulness. This one quality of being grateful in Islam is one of the most important things we have. Allah says in the Quran, orders us, وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ, that be thankful, be grateful to Allah. And if you don't, what is the opposite? Al-kufr, وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. Al-kufr here means to be ungrateful. To deny the blessings of Allah is to be ungrateful. And then in another verse, he says something amazing, something very sad. That he knows he's given us this concept of being thankful and grateful, yet he says, وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِيَ الشَّكُورِ, that only from my slaves, from not the people, from not humanity, not the entire world, from the whole world there are people who are slaves of Allah, who worship Allah as He should be. From those people, he says, from those people, qaleel, only a few of those people are actually thankful to Allah. So the reality is, it is a rare quality to have, but it's a very important quality to have as well. And so if we understand that it is this important, we ask, how is the way for us to be thankful? What can we do or say to be thankful to Allah and to be grateful? And what is the result of that thankfulness? What happens from that? And to explain that, I just want to give you one example today, and one example only. And that is sufficient for us. Because that example is from the Prophet ﷺ himself. The best examples are those in the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And these examples were given to us not as things to read and pass time, not as stories to pass on to our children. They are good, but to learn lessons from them and implement them in our lives. So one day, as he was sitting with the Sahaba sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he says, he gives this beautiful example. He says, from Bani Israel, from the children of Israel, there were 3 people before you, whom Allah tested in a very unique way. And he says the first of these 3 people was Al-Abras. a man who was afflicted with a disease of the skin, of leprosy. And the second of these people was al-aqra', a man who was afflicted with baldness. And the third of these people was al-abras, a man who was afflicted with blindness. And he says, Allah, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْهِمْ مَلَكًا, and Allah sends to them, each one of them, an angel. And so Allah sends an angel to the first man, al-abras, who was afflicted with the disease of the skin. And the angel comes to this man and asks him, فَأَيُّ شَيْءٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْكَ, what is the most beloved thing to you in this world? What do you want? And this man, of course, he says, I have a problem. This is my disease. I wish for لَوْنٌ حَسَنٌ وَجِلْدٌ حَسَنٌ. I wish for a beautiful color of skin and for beautiful skin in itself. I want these two things. Why? He says, because the people see me and they speak about me, they make fun of me, they mock me, they ridicule me. So this here gives us a sign. The scholars say that he was worried about what the people. He was very concerned how the people looked at him, how they viewed him. So he wanted this characteristic. So the man, the angel, he wipes over him, and by the will of Allah, he is cured. His skin has become beautiful. Not just, he doesn't ask for normal skin, he asks for beautiful skin. His skin becomes beautiful. His color of his skin becomes beautiful as well. And then the angel asks him, فَأَيُّ مَالٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْكَ, and what kind of wealth, what type of wealth is the most beloved to you? What would you like? And the man says, al-ibl, camels. Because at that time, the highest of wealth would be camels. Something that multiplies, something they can gain, and something that they use in their lives. So he asks for al-ibl. So the man says, here for you is a pregnant she-camel, وَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ لَكَ فِيهَا, and Allah has blessed it for you, not just a regular camel. Number one, it is pregnant. Number two, Allah has blessed this camel for you. So see what happens, and he leaves him. And then he goes to the second man, which was al-aqra', the man who was bald. And he comes to him and he tells him, فَأَيُّ شَيْءٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْكَ, again he tells him, I want شَعْرٌ حَسَنٌ, not just hair, I want beautiful hair, the best of hair. And so the angel wipes over him again, and of course he is given beautiful hair by the will of Allah. And he asks him the same question, فَأَيُّ مَالٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْكَ, and what is the most beautiful wealth or the most beloved wealth to you? He says, al-baqar, cows. The second level, the second best of wealth. And so the angel tells him, here for you is a pregnant cow, وَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ لَكَ فِيهَا, and Allah has already blessed it for you, and this is for you. See what happens. And so he goes to the third person. And this person was al-abras, a man who was blind. And he tells him the same question, of course. But this man's answer is a bit different. He says, what do I desire most? أَن يَرُدَّ اللَّهُ إِلَيَّ بَصَرِي, that Allah returns for me my eyesight. This means what? That he used to have eyesight before, and it was taken away. He became blind after some time. So he wishes for his eyesight to be returned so that he could see the people. He says, I want this so that I could see people. And so the angel wipes over him again, and he is given his eyesight by the will of Allah is restored. He asks him the third question, the same question, فَأَيُّ مَالٍ أَحَبُّ إِلَيْكَ, what wealth would you like? He says, al-ghanam, something more simple. He says, ghanam is like cattle, goats, sheep, something a bit more smaller. And he gives him a pregnant shat, a pregnant sheep. And then he says, Barakallahu laka fi, Allah has blessed for you as well. And he leaves these three men as they are. The hadith goes on that each of these animals, the camel, the cow, the ghanam, the sheep, they were pregnant, so they gave birth and they multiplied. And they multiplied, and they multiplied, and they multiplied. And this means years and years and years passed by. Until the first one has a valley full of wealth, of camels. And the second one has a valley full of cows as far as you can see. And the third one has a valley full of cattle as far as the eye could see. They are blessed with an enormous amount of wealth and their good health. And now here comes the test. This is where the test comes. Usually, this is very interesting, because usually when we think of tests and trials and tribulations, we think of Allah taking away things from us, right? And yes, those are forms of tests. That if we lose wealth, if we lose our job, if we lose somebody in our family, a loved one, anything we lose, we think, oh, the test is here. But very rarely do we think, or do we realize that when Allah gives us children, they are tests for us. When Allah gives us wealth, it is a test for us. When Allah gives us good health, it is also a test for us to see what we will do. So here comes their test after Allah has given each one of them something. And this summarizes the life of a Muslim. Because as the famous hadith says, that the life of a Muslim is amazing. The state of a Muslim is amazing. Because he is either in one of two states. If Allah takes something away from him and tests him, he is patient. And if Allah gives him blessings, whatever they may be, and tests him in this way, what happens? He is grateful. He is grateful. So we come to the test of these three people. So Allah sends that angel back to each of these three people, starting with the first man. But this time He sends the angel to the first one, fi hayatihi wa suratihi, in his own form, how he used to be. So the angel comes to the leper who used to be a leper, and he comes in the form of a man who has leprosy. The angel comes in the form of a man who has a disease of the skin. His skin is deformed and diseased. And he comes to the first man who had leprosy. Allah cured him. And he tells him that I am a traveler and I am very poor. Two things. I am poor and I am traveling. And I have lost all my wealth that I had. So I ask of you, I see you have all of this wealth of camels and more. I ask you just to give me a small amount, so I could return back to my city after my travel, just to suffice me to go back to where I'm traveling to. And the man replies, he says, Al-huququ kathira. I'm sorry, but my responsibilities are many. I have to spend on my family, I have to spend on myself, I have to do this and do that. I cannot spare anything for you, I'm sorry. And then the angel, in this form of the same form of the man how he used to be, he says, don't I know you from some time ago? I remember that you used to be a man who suffered from leprosy and Allah cured you. And he said, I remember also you used to be a man who was very poor, you had nothing. And Allah blessed you with wealth, all of these camels. Isn't this right? And the man answers, he says, no. I don't know what you're talking about. As for my health, I was always with this beautiful skin and this beautiful color. I always had this. And as for my wealth, it is not from Allah, but I gained it from where? From my fathers and my grandfathers. I inherited it after they passed away. So he denies the blessings of Allah. And then the angel makes a dua. He says, فَإِن كُنْتَ كَاذِبًا فَصَيَّرَكَ اللَّهُ إِلَى مَا كُنْتَ. That if you are lying, may Allah return you to the state you were, both in your health and in your wealth. And he leaves him. And then he goes to the second man who was afflicted with baldness, and he tells him the same thing. I am poor, I am a traveler, I need some wealth, just give me enough to get back to my city. And the answer is the same. I have too many responsibilities, I cannot. And he reminds him again, didn't Allah bless you with beautiful hair? Did Allah bless you with wealth? And he says again the same thing, no, I always had this beautiful hair, I always had this wealth, it is from my fathers. And he says the same dua, if you are lying, may Allah take you back how you were. And then he goes to the third man, the man who was blind. And he asks him the same question. I am a traveler, I am poor, I need something to get back to my city. The answer of the blind man is a beautiful answer. He doesn't say, here are a few sheep for you, take it. Here are a few whatever, well, take it and go on your way. He didn't say that. Listen to what he says. He says, yes. First he says, yes, I was blind, and Allah blessed me with eyesight. And he says, I was in poverty, and Allah blessed me with all of this wealth. So, he says, what you see in front of you today, this entire valley of cattle, of wealth, he says, take from it as much as you want. And he says, if you take everything that is in front of you, I own everything you take from it, I will not stop you. And if you take only one thing or take nothing at all and walk away, I will not stop you. Do whatever you want, this is for you. And then the angel replies with an even more beautiful answer. He says that indeed, he says, Amsik Malik, he says, keep your wealth, I want none of it. Indeed, Allah has tested you and your two companions. فَقَدْ رُضِيَ عَنْكَ وَسُخِطَ عَلَى صَاحِبَيْكَ. And Allah today is pleased with you. You have earned the pleasure of Allah. And as for your two companions, the ones who denied the pleasure, the blessings of Allah, that Allah is angry with them today. Allah is angry and He is not pleased with them today. This hadith is in Al-Bukhari and Muslim, authentic. Now, we just analyze again, reflect on this hadith. How did this man gain the pleasure of Allah? How was he grateful? There are just three things you have to be grateful. And there are three things this man did to be grateful. Remember these always, never forget these. The first thing is to understand, is to acknowledge that yes, we are blessed, that we have blessings. No matter what your state is, that you are blessed by Allah in some way or the other. Not everybody in the same way, but you are blessed. And that is when the man acknowledges first, he says, yes, I was blind, I can see now. I was poor, I have wealth now. And the first two men, they refused even their blessings. They said, we were the same way all of our life. Nothing has changed, there is no blessing. So the first thing is what? To acknowledge our blessings. And this is something that is in the heart. To acknowledge this is something in the heart, is a realization in the heart, is an internal realization. Sitting here today, every single one of us are blessed. You know, a man once came to Amr bin As, an authentic narration, and he tells him, Ya Amr, he says, we the Muhajirun, the ones who migrated from Mecca to Medina, he says, we are so poor, we don't have any wealth, look at the people around us. And he tells him, he asks him a question, he says, do you have a house to go back home to? And the man says, yes, I have a house. And he says, do you have a wife to go back home to? He says, yes, I have a wife. He says, then know that you are rich, that you are blessed. And the man says, wait. He said, I also have a servant at home. He says, you have a servant at home, then know that you are a king. You have a house, you have a wife, and you have a servant, you are a king. These are your blessings. And even if you reflect today upon us today, sitting here today, how are we blessed? I'll just give you one small fact that should acknowledge the blessings that we have. This is a fact, this is a stat given by Red Cross Canada. They said if you have these three things in your life, if you have clothes on your back, that we all have today, alhamdulillah, that if you have food in your fridge, if you have a fridge at home and you have food in that refrigerator, that we all do, alhamdulillah, and you have a bit of money, some spare change or whatever you have, savings, he says, if you have these three things, then you are more wealthy, you are richer than 75% of people in the world. 75%. You were amongst the top 25% of people in terms of wealth in the world. And there's no doubt we are blessed. Even if somebody does not have these things, for us, for example, the greatest blessing we have today is what? Forget about all the materialistic things. The greatest blessing we have today is Islam, is the religion of Islam. So the first thing, again, the first principle or pillar of gratefulness is to realize that we are blessed. And that is from the hadith. The second one, the second principle or the second foundation of gratitude to be grateful is what? Is we attribute those blessings to Allah. Many people say, yeah, we are blessed, but they say this has come from our own hands. We have done this all from ourselves. Everything goes back to us. But the second point is to attribute it back to Allah. The man in the hadith, what did he say? After the angel comes to him, he says, yes, I was blessed, I was given eyesight by who? Allah. Then he says, yes, I was given wealth by who? Allah was the one who gave me everything. So we understand these blessings we have goes back to Allah. And this is also something where we say, Alhamdulillah, before we eat, after we eat, whatever things we do, we say, Alhamdulillah. This is a thing done by the tongue. The first one was the acknowledgement in the heart. The second thing is your tongue, is your body. Say Alhamdulillah. To understand these blessings come from Allah. There is a beautiful saying in a tafsir of Al-Qurtubi, the famous scholar, in his explanation of Quran. He says that Dawood alayhi salam, David, the prophet David, one day he tells Allah, he makes a dua to Allah. He says, oh Allah, I am trying to be grateful to you, but listen to what he says. He says, even me, even my state right now of thanking you is a blessing in and of itself. He says, even me right now, acknowledging that you have blessed me and saying Alhamdulillah and thanking you and being grateful, this gratefulness is a blessing in itself. So how can I really be grateful to you? Because it just goes on and on. And the Imam says in his tafsir that Allah applies to him and tells him, now you have understood truly what it means to be grateful. That you can never actually be grateful to Allah, but we can try by acknowledging we are blessed and by saying and referring those blessings back to Allah. And that is the second thing. And the third thing, which is very important as well, is to use those blessings to do good, to use those blessings to live how Allah told us to live, to use those blessings for good. How would these blessings used for good by the man in the hadith? Of course, when the angel comes to him, he tells him to share his wealth, and he shared his wealth. He was ready to give up everything, and this is giving for the sake of Allah. This is with wealth specifically. And that was how he was grateful. He showed it by action, through action. And for us, a simple reminder, number one is what? Az-zakat. Whatever wealth we have been blessed with, a reminder for myself and all the brothers and sisters who are listening or are present, to be sure we give our zakat every year. Do not forget that. That is a very important thing. And they say that if you have just given your zakat every year, that is enough. That is enough of a gratitude in terms of your wealth. You have fulfilled your gratefulness to Allah in terms of your wealth, because you are fulfilling your obligatory charity, and that's what you have to do at the minimum. That is the first thing. The second example was, go back to the first hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. How was he being grateful? He was standing in prayer. And for us, alhamdulillah, we don't have to stand the entire night. It is good, but we don't have to stand the entire night until our feet swell up. There is one prayer specifically I want to remind myself and you guys with. It is something that is often overlooked. It is called Salat al-Duha, the Pair of Doha. And this is a prayer that is optional, voluntary prayer. It is a sunnah mu'akkada, emphasized sunnah. And this prayer can be as small as 2 units until 8 or even more. 2 rakat is even the minimum. It starts from after the sun has risen fully, about 15-20 minutes after the sun has risen. It ends about 15 minutes before the time of Dhuhr, when the sun is at its peak. So it's between these 2 times. It is a flexible time. If you just pray these 2 rakat, in the hadith it says that these 2 units, a small amount, 5 minutes, this represents us being grateful for all the physical blessings Allah has given us. It is a form of gratitude. It is a form of charity for every bone in your body. It is like every single bone in your body is giving charity, giving thanks to Allah just by this small prayer. So that is a beautiful example for us to remember to be grateful to Allah as well with our actions. And this, of course, extends further to whatever actions we can do for the sake of Allah as well. We end with the last point, which is the benefits of being grateful once we have had these 3 pillars have been fulfilled, to understand the blessings, we acknowledge the blessings, to go back to Allah and to perform good deeds with the blessings. What is the result or importance of the state of gratefulness? 2 things. Number 1, like the man in the hadith, what did the angel tell him? فَقَدْ رُضِيَ عَنْكَ, that you have earned the pleasure of Allah. And wallahi, there is nothing more valuable in this world than the pleasure of Allah. That if the entire world is pleased with you, the entire population of 7 billion plus, every single person in this world loves you and they are pleased with you, but Allah is not pleased with you, then it means nothing. And that if every single person in this world hates you or is not pleased with you, but Allah is pleased with you, it means everything. It doesn't matter what those people think if you've earned the pleasure of Allah. So being grateful in this way earns us the pleasure of Allah. And the last point, which is the result of this gratefulness, is Allah says in the Quran, وَلَئِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ, that if you are grateful for your blessings, then what? I will increase you in blessings. I will bless you in what I've given you, and I will increase you. And that's why the famous saying of Ali ibn Abi Talib, Ali, he says that blessings and gratefulness, they go together. That with gratefulness comes blessings. As you are grateful, you are blessed. And as you are grateful for those blessings, your blessings will only increase, they will never ever decrease. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us amongst those who are grateful. And we ask Allah to make us amongst those who wealth is blessed, and we ask Allah to increase us in blessings as well. Ameen. هذا والله أعلم وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين والحمد لله رب العالمين.